This week we're talking Rick and Morty, we're talking Monarch, we've got Bob's Burgers, we've got a bunch of stuff all here, and if you don't agree,
you're wrong!
Welcome, guys. We are pumped to have you guys here. And before we get stuck into the plethora of great shows we're going to talk about, if you could do us a favor kindly and please like and subscribe, hit that notification bell, and yeah, share the word of this two whack jobs talking TV each week. Talking about whack jobs, my partner in crime here, Jason Roy Gaston. How are you, sir?
I am great, and I appreciate the way that you're expanding your vocabulary with the word plethora. It means a lot.
It does. Let's move it on. I think we got so much to talk about, as we do every week, because literally I'm chained to a room for 4 days a week watching content just for this show, just for you people out there.
Things we do for you people. It's unreal.
And now it's time to regurgitate all that we've seen. And, yeah, should have chosen a better word than regurgitate.
Yeah, it's not as good as plethora.
Crapopolis. Wow, I can't believe how far we have been hitting through this season, Jason. We are episode 10.
Is it 10? Really? Wow.
10 episodes of this show. And you know what?
It's so hard to keep track because Fox never airs this thing regularly. It's like they're trying to do Futurama season 1 all over again, and that worked out so well for them.
What's the deal with that? Because I
don't know.
It's tough to follow. They just take weeks off. It's like, you know that show that's doing really well?
Yeah.
Nah, they don't need to see it this
It's
week.
Fox. It wouldn't be Fox if they weren't foxing things up.
Bunch of foxes. Let's move it on. All right, Jason, we're going to get into now the review part of the segment where you're going to let us know what you thought of this week's episode of Crapopolis. You ready to go, sir?
I am ready to go. Let's speak of Crapopolis.
Let's do it.
So we had 2 stories this week, one of which was King Tyrannus finding out that his grandfather, Schlub's father, has died. And so he talked Schlub into going and paying his final respects. Schlub doesn't like his dad. His dad was apparently not a good dude. When they find Schlub's father, he's dead in the middle of the street. People are beating him with canes, and they're defecating on him. So obviously not a very popular thing. But King Tyrannus finds out that he was cursed whenever he was born, and he demands that the curse be taken off of him. This is Schlub's father's witch familiar woman. The curse is taken off, and surprise, surprise, he has a scorpion tail. That was the curse, was to get rid of the scorpion tail. At first, he's horrified, but it gives him a new sense of power because the tail makes him powerful and mean. And it's an actually very sinister story that I enjoyed. Richard Ayoade really brought a level to Tyrannus we've never seen before. This sinister, mean, awful human being that a little bit of power turns the normally very sweet Tyrannus into. He was going to be the tyrant in his name. The second story, Hippocampus and Stupendous disobey Deliria, and they go and rescue a Pegasus, and it basically turns into the most horrible thing you can imagine. I was dying during that entire sequence. Just, I don't even want to talk about where it goes. It's just, think of the Pegasus, think of My Little Pony. Now imagine the absolute opposite of that. This show is outstanding. This show is hilarious. This show is one of my brand new favorites. And if you're not watching Crapopolis, you are literally everything wrong with society right now. So watch Crapopolis. Fox does air it every now and again. Watch it, enjoy it. You will not regret it. I am giving Crapopolis a thumbs up.
Fantastic. All right, I'm going to let you know what I thought of Crapopolis now. I will forever be changed in what I think unicorns are capable of. It has scarred me for life, I will say that. However, at the heart of this story, like a lot of this season, it's really about family. and I don't mean that's a very throwaway generic term, but it is. I find a lot of it, like the way the behaviors of the family, how they react to each other, very relatable. And certainly with Tyrannus' story this week, it's a nice little kind of tale about how a little bit of like absolute power corrupts absolutely. And Tyrannus know how wholesome he is and how noble he is in his cause to try to create a thriving society. All it takes is that one little change, and he's ready to become a dictator. Absolutely wonderful. Matt Berry, I think, is doing an incredible performance here. And on the surface, it seems like Matt Berry, but he's doing a really nuanced performance playing sharp. I think it's wonderful. And it's another great episode. But yes, Santa, I don't want unicorns for Christmas this year anymore. And that's where I'm going to leave it. But it's absolutely, as Jason said, if you're not watching this, is something very, very wrong with you. Please seek medical attention immediately, or alternatively, watch the show. This is definitely horrific all the way.
Absolutely.
All right.
Yes.
There you go. I mean, really, it is. I mean, I don't think we're over talking it, are we? It is up there, right? I mean,
the few times that this show shows up on Hulu when Fox has actually aired it, I get excited because there's never been a bad episode. Every episode just seems to top the next one. And as you said, it's this wonderful series about a family who acts like they don't care about each other, but they do. And it's very wholesome and wonderful and inventive. And I just love it. I love everything about it.
It's 10 for 10 so far
Yes.
with the show. They've nailed it, each one of them. All right, well, let's see if the next show is doing the same kind of thing. And we're going to talk about this week's episode of Rick and Morty, Jays. Rick and Morty are now kicking along to, wow, what episode are we in? Episode 8 of season 7 already?
Yes.
Crazy. Titled Rise of the Numbericons, the movie. Is it Numericons? I don't know. They say it a million times in it, but I don't see it. So anyway, I'm going to get started, give you my opinion. I love these little one-off stories that Rick and Morty do sometimes. And this is is set after a after credits scene in the Get Swifty episode. We now get to continue on to see that storyline. Water Tea, which is voiced by Dan Harmon, again does an incredible job. But as you said to me in the messenger before this, Ice-T actually plays a role in this, playing Water Tea's father in it. It's a fun episode. It's a callback to action films of the 80s, 90s. I mean, I wouldn't want to see this storyline continue, but I enjoyed it quite a bit. I love a good pun, and this is just dripping in puns. The whole episode is just oozing in puns. So, no, absolutely, I love it. I think it's a really good show. It's a really good season that has reinvigorated my hope for Rick and Morty. Because I'll be honest with you, by season 5 or 6, I'm like, I get it, but they've done such a wonderful job this year. Even though this episode doesn't feel something we haven't seen before, I think it was executed very well. It's another horrific from me. Rick and Morty, loving this season, guys. Loving this season. Horrific. All right, buddy. That's my opinion on it. Let's see what you got to say.
So there was absolutely no reason why this stupid episode should have been this fun. A rickless Rick and Morty episode with Morty and Mr. Goldenthorpe, and Ice-T, not voiced by Ice-T, going on an intergalactic weird adventure. I also think that this shows the difference in between last week's episode, which I gave a thumbs down to. I didn't think it was very good whenever they did the Total Recall and Taken parody. When Rick and Morty pokes fun at a genre rather than a specific movie, I think that it works a lot better. And this was it was GoBots and Transformers, and it was spectacularly whacked out. and there was so much cleverness. The puns were wonderful. Having the Zero be Dreadnought. I don't care who you are. You got to respect that. Having Ice-T voice, not Ice-T, but Ice-T's father, I thought was great. I don't know if that was really, I don't know if that was Ice Cube at the end. It didn't sound like him, but I really do want to follow up to this because I want to know what happens to the Numericons after this. This was like watching Saturday morning cartoons on acid. I loved it. I've seen a lot of people say that this is the worst episode of the season. I say, what episode did you watch? This was fun. It was silly. It was goofy. It was low concept television. I laughed. Sometimes I was laughed, and then I laughed at what I laughed at and why I laughed at it, because it was just so ridiculous. And that is why I'm giving this episode a horrific thumbs up. I just loved it.
I love the 8 turning to infinity.
Oh my gosh, that was so great.
Yeah, and it's just, and it is really poking fun at the commercialism of that kind of cartoon too, by saying, look, we made cartoons in the 80s and it could have been about letters and numbers. As long as it had guns and explosions, all the kids were going to watch it anyway. But yeah, Magma Q transforming Magma T, it's a highlight. Yeah, I don't know what people are thinking. They're cooked.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's move on to a show that if anybody doesn't like, well, you're wrong.
You're wrong. You are wrong.
And that's Bob's Burgers.
Yes, the Halloween episode just in time for the Christmas season.
Is that what it was?
I don't know.
Like Halloween. All right. Well,
yeah.
Well, you kind of opened that can of worms, Jace. You better let us know. What did you think of this week's Bob's Burgers?
So a found footage zombie episode was definitely not in my Bob's Burgers wheelhouse. And given how grounded this television show is, I kind of thought the entire time, okay, is it a dream? Are the kids just having a goof? Is this a practical joke to get Louise to confess that she can't do archery? And yeah, it turned out they were just making a movie just for the heck of it, which is such a kid thing to do. And Bob and oh my gosh, what is the mom's name? I can't remember.
Linda.
Bob and Linda are such supportive parents that they appeared in it, and the neighborhood is so supportive of it as well, that whenever you find out what's going on, it's just so wholesome and so wonderful, which is just Bob's Burgers all over. Yes, there's a little bit of cynicism to this show. Yes, there's a little bit of smart alecness, but overall, this is the story of a family that loves each other and a neighborhood that cares about each other, except for Joey Pesto. He can go walk off the pier. I thought that this was well staged. I really enjoyed the found footage aspect of it, which was not completely overdone, and how it wrapped around Louise's use of the bow and arrow and about how she lied about being a great shot. Yeah, this was a Halloween episode. I have no idea why they set on it until the Christmas season. It's still a great episode, though. It was a lot of fun. And as I do every week, I just might as well just get this guy out for the show all the time. It's a horrific. I thought it was wonderful.
I must say, I agree with Bob and Linda at the end of this episode. That was a good zombie film.
Yes.
It's a good zombie film because you had well-defined character. You had a story arc, where you had a character hiding a secret that they weren't actually who they said they were. That's all built into the movie these kids are making. There's a moment where Bob and Linda have to sacrifice themselves to save the kids. This was all what they made. And I thought, wow, it's so great. The way I wasn't sure what they were doing. I'm thinking, is it a dream or not? But the fact that it was a home movie, I thought was absolutely delightful. The sweetest family in New York City. I mean, that's where they're based, and I think there's probably no better neighborhood. If I was to move to New York, I'd want to move to that neighborhood because it seems amazing. So wonderful episode, isn't it? But it is odd. It is odd that they decided to move it to such a time slot because you're not expecting it, and maybe that's the idea of this one. that we weren't expecting this type of episode this time of year. Whatever they were doing, it was great. Yeah. It's just like a permanent, almost permanent horrific for this show. There's no doubt about it. I mean, I don't know what more to say. How do you keep talking about perfection all the time?
I'd move to the neighborhood just for the burgers.
Yes, his burgers. Yes. I'm not eating pizza in that neighborhood, though.
No, Joey Pesto can just shove it.
Jump.
Yeah, go shove it.
Go shove
Pesto.
it. All right, let's move it on. We're going to get out of the world for animation for a bit because we're going to go and jump into, well, Godzilla's really back in the zeitgeist now, isn't it, Jason?
Yes, he is.
Not only with this show, we've been seeing trailers for Godzilla -1. We've seen trailers for Godzilla Times Kong. I mean, it's all the world of Godzilla and monsters is big.
I thought it was Godzilla Loves Kong.
You could take it like that.
That's where the little monkey boy comes from.
I don't know.
Half Kong, half Godzilla.
All CGI.
All their love.
Like, no offense, I think they've still got some work to do on that little baby boy monkey in the CGI house.
I just wanted to see the woman in that scene go, I knew it, Kong, and then it cuts to black.
Mind you, if you guys haven't seen the Godzilla -1 trailer, oh my God, check that out. It's amazing. Go over on YouTube.
Thinking I'm going to go see that tomorrow. I'm going to try.
So lucky. So lucky. It hasn't released here yet. Anyway, there has been a TV series that has dropped. Now, so far, it would be agreed that even though I wasn't a fan of episode 1 and 2 last week, really brought me back. Really excited about watch this week's Monarch. So I'm going to let you know what I think about it now. I did not really love this episode a lot. I thought this episode really dragged and was a bit of a disappointment from last week. There were certain elements that I did enjoy. I certainly like the fact that they call it a name here too. They call it a Frostvark monster. I like the monster. I like the idea of what we find out with that monster without giving away. However, the biggest problem for this show is I'm really struggling with Kentaro and Mei as characters. And I really feel this episode made me dislike Mei completely. Not in the A storyline when she obviously gets, she's got an injury to deal with, but it's the B story where we're seeing the forming of the relationships that I find her completely unlikable as a character and could not connect in any way why Kentaro would want to get involved with her. I felt it very flat. I felt those, especially the B story this week, really dragged down the episode. However, I understand what they're trying to do. They're setting things up, and we are, episode 4. You're going to get a bit of a slow episode. But yeah, I did not have fun with this one. It certainly was a letdown for me. But I still think the show is doing really interesting things. And I love what its world building and its franchise building. I think they're doing a decent job overall. But this episode, for me, unfortunately, I can't say I hate it, but I was very meh about it this week. So that's where I hit, Jace. So let's hear what you thought of this week's Monarch.
Okay, so this week's Monarch. I remember there was a little TV show a few years ago called Lost. And Lost was, at first, a very incredible show, but then they started doing these filler episodes where they would have the characters in a situation that was somewhat exciting, but then they would do flashbacks to the character to show what they were doing before they went on the island. And my whole thought about that was, who cares? No one cares about this. Get us to the good parts, please. I don't care about Kentaro and Maya. I don't care. They're not good characters. As a matter of fact, no one in the 2015 era, with the exception of maybe Kurt Russell, are interesting or people that I want to follow. I'm interested in what's going on back in the 40s and 50s. I want to know what the legacy of monsters was. So I honestly think you're being way too charitable. I thought that this episode was a boring slog to get through. A boring slog with characters I did not like doing things I did not care about. Was the monster cool? Yeah. All, 4 minutes it was in this episode. And the whole thing about what it wanted, I had it figured out the episode before. It was not a surprise. As a matter of fact, it was like Saturday morning cartoon twist. I saw it coming, and I just don't like these characters. I just don't. I don't.
Oh.
No, this one was bad. It was bad. It was boring. I didn't like it, and I want to see more of the old guard. The new guard are just not impressing me.
I got to agree 100% with you in regards to the best storyline so far has been Wyatt Russell, being the young, the young version, and seeing, because they set it up beautifully in the end of episode 3, where they're going, well, we've been now funded at, basically a blank checkbook. I want to see how they spend that checkbook.
I do too.
Very disappointing. However, I think I'm owed something here, because you said it was horrible. I said it was middling. So one of us is right. Yep, I thought it would go that way.
Yes.
All right, let's move it on now, Jace, to really a little mini-series we're going through at the moment. A little mini-series of Doctor Who. This small show you may not have heard of it, called Doctor Who. We got part 2 of a trilogy. Is that fair to say, Jason? Or
there's 3 parts.
There's 3 parts,
not counting the Christmas episode. There are 3 parts. Yeah. So it's so
here we are on the second episode of the returning David Tennant. So and I you ready to go, Jace?
I'm ready to go. Let's do it.
Go.
So I enjoyed this episode. I thought it was a lot of fun. I do think it was a step down from the first week, because there was a lot in this episode that just looked silly. And it was meant to be scary, but watching David Tennant come out with giant arms and Catherine Tate with 4 knees just looked the opposite of scary. It just looked goofy. Add to that the endless, obviously CGI hallway, the conveniently placed vehicle that they managed to get, and just the Doctor being very mean to the robot for absolutely no reason. I was just like, why are you acting this way? The story itself is interesting. I wish that they would have gone into a little bit more in depth about where the monsters of the week came from. But overall, I thought it was very creepy. I like the idea of not being able to trust people that you think you can trust. And I also have to give props to Davies for actually talking about the flux and giving some weight to Jodie Whittaker's era, because a lot of people don't like many of the decisions that were made during that time period, during the last Doctor's reign. I'm one of them. I don't like some of the decisions that were made, but the fact that they're saying those decisions were made, they are part of the Doctor. Jodie Whittaker was the Doctor, whether you like it or not. I have to give respect that they're taking that stance and they're saying, yes, what happened mattered. But that being said, get me off my soapbox. I have to, at this moment, hold on one second. It's a Roo-rific for me.
All right. Fantastic. There you go. All right. Okay. I'm ready to let you know what I thought. I come at this as a very different perspective, because I've been so disconnected from this modern era of Doctor Who. So I look at these episodes from pure, just basic storytelling, like my knowledge of the lore. You mentioned the flux. I obviously went, that was important, but I had no context of what that was, as I find a lot of in Doctor Who. However, maybe because I'm a child of the 80s and I remember the old Tom Baker and all the older, even the old black and white ones, I felt this episode felt very Doctor Who for me, and the goofiness is part of that. it does seem like a strange choice to make it look comical with the jaw falling down and the arms falling down. However, I enjoyed the concept about time. I always love a good time stuff. So the fact that the whole thing was set up around time, like what they were trying to achieve. I loved being on basically the edge of the universe. I thought that was a nice little touch. And I must admit, it was nice to see Doctor Who dealing with some stuff. I don't know what that stuff is about because I haven't seen the episodes where that stuff happened, but he's clearly dealing with trauma at the moment, and I found that quite fine. And it was nice to see David Tennant deal with some of that stuff as a performer. I think he's excellent. No, look, I it feels like a filler episode. It feels like the writers went, we need another episode idea. Come on, guys. Where I would have thought this would have been something quite kind of epic. It seemed very contained. I have a feeling they ran out of money when they built the new TARDIS. But either way, it's great. I mean, it's got a great ending to it, leading into something. I got no idea what the next episode kind of will contain or who the villain with. But Doctor Who, I mean, it was pretty good. So, yeah, I'll give it a re-rific as well. But, yeah, there's so much, Jason. I just don't know. Like, there are references made in that show every few minutes. I'm just kind of just going with it.
It's fair. Also, I have to say, so wonderful to see Bernard Cribbins again at the end of the episode.
Yeah,
I know you don't know who Wilf is.
I don't know, but I do know the actor who's an excellent.
Yeah, Wilf is just the most beautiful treasure of a human being of all time, and unfortunately, Bernard Cribbins passed away last year, so this is our last time ever seeing him.
Oh, really? They called this. Oh.
So he's not.
Wow.
He's going to be mentioned in next week's episode, but he does not appear. So
right.
That was it. That was his last scene. And we love you. We love you, Wilf. We love you, Bernard. Rest in peace. Thank you.
Now, I had read something a while ago, and I haven't seen any trailers that Neil Patrick Harris is in an upcoming Doctor Who episode.
He's in.
Is that next week?
That's next week.
That's where he appears.
He is playing a. Since you talked about watching the classic Doctor Who episodes, he's playing a classic Doctor Who villain we have not seen in decades.
Who?
The Celestial Toy Maker.
How can I know that guy? I'm thinking about if I find the picture of the original guy. If it's one I'm thinking.
Oh my gosh! Yeah,
Celestial Toy Maker.
He looks goofy, but you know what?
If this is the guy I'm thinking of, wow, they've recast him. Well, they have.
Well, they have to. It's only been
anyway. No, you know what? I'll look at that later. We're going to move on. And let's move on to another show, Jason, that we've been watching. This is the second episode we're talking about tonight, and that is a Netflix series called Blueeyed Samurai. We touched on this last week. I'm going to let loose and let you know what I thought of this week's episode of Blueeyed Samurai. I'm kind of enjoying this quite a bit now. I don't know. I don't think it's perfect, but I feel like it's drawing me into this world. This journey of revenge is really starting to kind of mount up. And I'm really liking the main characters that we got here. I miss you. I love her. And I certainly think her Ringo's become one of my favorites, you know. And yeah, look. There's not a lot going on with the plot. It's a really simple plot, let's be honest. They try to add some layers to it, but it's a very one road. It's a revenge tale, and we're kind of going through that. And you know, we're cutting back to seeing how she was raised with the sword maker, which I absolutely love all that. But yeah, it's beautiful to look at. It's definitely got a lot of heart and soul in this. But yeah, I enjoy it. But I don't think it's a show I would watch on repeat a lot. Like, I've seen this episode. I know where the characters are going. I don't feel I'm going to want to go back to revisit it, but I'm kind of in on the journey. So this episode, without giving away the detail, it does have a great fight sequence at the end of this episode, I will say. It's probably not really deserving of rubric, but it's not deserving of an apathy. It kind of sits in the middle there. Some weird kangaroo koala hybrid. But I will, just because I think it's there's a lot of care done in this. I will give it a rubric for this week. So that's where on Blue-Eyed Samurai, mate, your turn.
I'm ready. So I'm going to be a lot more charitable. I was kind of, I had the hybrid last week. This week I'm going into full thumbs up territory because I think that this episode broke enough cliches that it has become something that is interesting and something I really haven't seen before. Plus, I did not realize how stacked this cast was because I heard what I thought was George Takei's voice, and I thought, who else is in this show? Kenneth Branagh, Randall Park, George Takei, Masaoka from Heroes, Hero from Heroes, Kari Hiroyuki Tagawa, who is an absolute legend, plays the sword maker. There is some wonderful talent in this show. This is the first episode where I felt like I was actually starting to get to know the samurai, and I really like that not only do we see the samurai's skills, we also see the samurai's vulnerability. And if you're watching this right now, spoiler alert, the samurai is a woman, the worst kept secret ever. But I like how this wall that she's built up around herself comes tumbling down when Ringo is around. And Ringo is such a wonderful character. He's naive. He's opening up his eyes to the world. And he's just so much fun watching him sampling all the other food and realizing he's not the best at what he did and making his wish at the end was great. The fight on the cliff was incredible, and what a cliffhanger. I'm really looking forward to the next episode. It's won me over. I hope it keeps me because I'm giving this one a well-deserved thumbs up. I enjoy it.
I think it's just so beautiful to watch. So you get stuck in it, and I'm shocked at how R-rated it is.
It is.
I mean, they really go raunchy here.
There was a lot of flopping going around in this episode. A lot of flopping.
Yeah, especially that one scene with all running along the jetty. I'm like, there's all the different body shapes and sizes too.
Yeah.
So I thought
they're definitely not hung up on
size, age, nothing.
No. Lots of flopping.
Definitely worth checking out for sure, though.
Yes.
Definitely worth checking out. All right, Jace. Well, we're going to move on now. We don't, believe it or not, no new shows to talk about this week.
It's the time of the year. It's just the time of the year.
It's the time of the year. So now we're going to get cracking into our next segment. Well, one I kind of really love, and it puts us in the right frame of mind, and that's... All right. I'm going to start it off this week because I think we need to end on a positive, and I don't know if my hidden gem is very positive. As I have on multiple weeks here, guys, I'm a real big proponent for Australian cinema. I love Australian cinema, especially Australian cinema of the 70s and 80s because it's so unique and bizarre. And I've been holding on to this one to talk about, but it's time to bring out a sequel to a very famous werewolf film that came out in 1981 called The Howling. Do you remember seeing The Howling?
I love The Howling.
And it had the mum from E.T. in it, if you remember.
Yes.
And
the Doctor from Voyager.
And the Doctor from Voyager. But The Howling was great. They also made a sequel called The Howling 2. Not as good. But they did, of course, they decided it's time to bust out Howling 3. The difference this time, Jason...
That was a little bit of a
yeah. Yep. The difference this time is they thought they might make it somewhere else rather than America. So somehow an Australian filmmaker talked these guys into letting them make an Australian version of The Howling. So even though the title says Howling 3, it has something else to the title, and that is Howling 3, The Marsupials. So yes, it is exactly what you think. This is an Australian bizarre movie where the werewolves, it's not a wolf they're turning into marsupials. It is one of the most bizarre, strangest, most uncomfortable films I've ever seen. With some of the most horrible performances, and special effect. I mean, look at that, Jason.
Is that Wile E. Coyote?
I don't know what that
Oh
is.
my
I've
God.
never seen one of them in the wild yet. But it is absolutely however, that is not a bad scene. Nice, but look how prosthetic it looks.
Gosh.
And they're just pulling everything out for this.
A little bit of Clearasil will clean that up.
Well, there's one scene which is boudoir in the bedroom, I believe, if I can remember, where you see one of the main girls who is having babies, but she has her own pouch with a little.
Oh, of course she does.
Little marsupials were climbing up her belly. It is gross. It is disgusting.
Nice.
I don't know how this film was made, but I watched it so many times growing up. It's like having an Australian trauma film. That's probably the best way to explain it. So if you haven't seen it, and I know a lot of Americans who have seen this movie because they were fans of The Howling and Howling 2. So they went looking for this film. Probably didn't go looking for number 4, did you, afterwards?
No. Howling 3 pretty much, that took care of my Howling cravings right there.
Yeah, that's a franchise killer, no doubt, but certainly bizarre. I don't know where you would find it these days. I'm sure it's living somewhere on YouTube or Tubi or something like that. But if you want one of those nights where you maybe got some friends around and you just want something in the background that's weird, marsupials, the Howling 3, the marsupials, well, you won't forget it in a rush, that's for sure. Jace, tell me you got something a bit more classy than that.
I do. I have something
Beauty.
extra super classy from Paul Dini, who was well known for Batman and Superman and Justice League and the entire Diniverse. What if I told
Creative
you...
Harlequin.
Yes. What if I told you that Paul Dini had a DC animated series you didn't watch? You should slap yourself right now because you missed out on greatness. Because, ladies and gentlemen, my hidden gem this week is Green Lantern, the animated series.
Wow. Wow, okay.
Picture it. 2012. The world is still recovering from a natural disaster known as Green Lantern the movie. It was not good. It was the opposite of good. It was terrible. And as DC did back then, anytime there was a major release of one of their movies, which was not very often, they accompanied it with either a direct-to-video movie or a television series. And in this case, it was a television series, and it was Green Lantern. People assumed it was going to be a continuation of the movie, and they never watched it. It was not a continuation of the movie. It was its own thing, which saw Hal Jordan journeying to a distant corner of the galaxy with a friend of his named Kilowog, and they joined forces with a Red Lantern named Razor. Red Lanterns, their powers are derived from anger. Together, this uneasy duo, joined by an artificial intelligence that was contained inside of their ship, have to stop a basically universe-ending threat from poking its head up and ruining everything. This series is great because you have these wonderful personalities bouncing off of each other, but you also have a very interesting arc. You get to meet all of these characters from Green Lantern, such as Sinestro before he becomes evil. You get to meet Larfleeze, the Orange Lantern, and you get these wonderful, delicious hints that the Black Lanterns are somewhere in the background ready to make their move. Unfortunately, the series did not last that long. It ended on kind of a dour note, with one character dead and another character leaving to go and try to find her if she still exists. But it was somewhat resolved in an episode of Young Justice in the last season, because this character returns and basically tells you where he's been for the last few years, which I thought it was really cool. They did an episode that was a sequel to the Green Lantern animated series. I do believe it is on Max. It is totally worth checking out. I highly recommend it. And I am very angry at you for never having watched it, because we complained and we begged for years to have a Green Lantern television series. They gave it to us, and we just kind of put our noses up and didn't even sample it. Sample it now. Green Lantern, the animated series. Tell Paul Dini that Jason Roy Gaston sent you.
I will say, that stench of that film did a lot of damage. And
it was
like no one really wanted to talk Green Lantern at all at that point, and it's a shame because Paul Dini's a legend. He's written some great He-Man episodes. Like this guy's been around forever. So I will check it out for sure. I'll definitely get it.
I just hope that the guy who starred in the Green Lantern movie, I hope he landed on his feet. I don't know what he's done since then. But hopefully he's okay.
I think he's working on a little independent film at the moment. So
okay, well,
yeah. Was it like a buddy cop thing?
It was. It was the true stars of this. I mean, you had Hal Jordan, but the Red Lantern and Kilowog, the big guy with the tusks, they were the ones who would bounce off of each other, and they formed this very true, very wholesome friendship between the two of them that really came to a head in Young Justice whenever they resolved the storyline. So hopefully one day we will see the end of Razor's journey and see what happens to the guy.
Well, there's going to be a resurgence now with Green Lantern because we've got James Gunn developed Green Lantern series coming.
Yes, with Nathan Fillion as Guy Gardner, which I'm very excited about.
Like, it's just like the perfect casting, right? I mean, and he knew that. James Gunn knew that and probably said to him, if we ever do it, you're going to be the guy. And, all these years later, he's finally getting to do it. So
Nathan Fillion casted in anything is the perfect casting. They could have cast him as Wonder Woman. Everybody would have just gone, perfect casting.
Yeah, I even watched, and I do not like these type of shows, but I even watched a few episodes of The Rookie because of him.
I don't like that show either, but
but he's there, I'm so magnetic.
He is. He's got such charisma.
I mean, his little scene in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 was hilarious.
It was.
Anyway, guys, that wraps it up for tonight's show. We will be back next week to talk about new shows again. In the meantime, you'll be able to catch us all over the place, especially here on the Jason Roy Gaston channel, where there's always something happening. Comedy goes where to die. We'll keep you busy for hours, won't we?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Well, we'll slowly destroy your life by making you watch all our content. And you're not
scrolling through it. It's going to get good any minute now, isn't it? I don't know.
It is, but it is that good. It's like something you first bite it and you go, ugh, but you get used to it. And that's what we are. You get used to it.
We are an acquired taste. Like the coffee that's made out of cat crap.
Yeah. It's a little bit tangy in the beginning, but it gets the job done.
Bit nutty, yes.
Yeah, a bit nutty. All right, we're out of here, guys. We will see you next week. Oh, wow. When I think of cat poo, I don't think that's nutty. I think of dog poo, I think it's nutty, but cat poo, I don't know. Okay. I'm thinking...
You do know that was just like a throwaway joke, and I've never sampled dog or cat poo. It was just a throwaway reference to Austin Powers.
So how are those Chicago Bulls going? They're doing